Most studio and gym owners only focus on revenue, but that's only half the picture. If you don't understand profit, cash flow, and your labor percentage, you might be making money on paper, but there's nothing in your pocket. Today, I'm going to break it down all on the $1 Million Napkin so you can finally take control of your gym's financial health. Have a coffee with me. Now, I built and sold my $1 Million studios for nearly $2 million by mastering my gym's financials, not just marketing and sales. And over the last 10 years, I've helped over 1,000 studio owners understand their numbers so they too can scale without the financial stress. My clients inside the Geronimo Academy generate over $8 million a month, with 92% at record revenues and 40% or less labor percentages because they track the right financial metrics. That means they can take more money home for their families and live the life that they want to live. If you've ever felt like your studio makes money, but you never see it, let's fix that right now. Most gym and studio owners don't track their financials properly, which means they confuse profit with cash flow and wonder why they're broke. Or number two, they don't track their labor percentage, which can quite literally destroy your margins if it's too high. And number three, they scale revenue, but not profit. So they work harder and harder and harder for less money. How does that make sense? The solution, understanding these three numbers, let's break them down. So this is my $1 Million Napkin. It's as if you and I are sitting down for a coffee and I'm just kind of explaining a few things with you. The first thing I want to talk to you guys about is profit. Now, profit is what's left over after expenses. So quite literally, the formula is there's the revenue, there's like what you make top line, your sales, your merchandise sales, your supplement sales, everything minus your expenses. That equals profit. So if your gym or studio makes, I don't know, let's go $80,000 a month, and it costs you $40,000 a month to turn the lights on, put the sessions on, wipe the toilets, everything costs you $40,000 a month, then your profit is $40K a month. The reason why this matters is because if you don't watch your profit and you just look at your top line, you're not really looking at the real picture. Because I've seen this, right? A gym can be doing $80,000, but it costs them $70,000 to actually run that place. So they're only making $10,000. Now, ideally, what you want to do is we want to get your profit up to about 20 to 30% down here, about 20 to 30% of the top line revenue. And that's after you paid back your debt, the paid debt, plus everyone is getting paid properly. A lot of times we'll have studio owners that say, yeah, I'm making $30,000 profit every single month. And you go, great. And how much are you taking out as your salary? Because they are operating in the business and they go, nothing, I'm not taking any salaries. Well, then your profit is kind of your salary. If you left your business and had to replace you with someone else to do the job that you're doing, you'd have to pay them something, right? So then in fact, your profit's probably a little bit less. And that's what you're going to be taking out as your dividends at the end of the quarter or at the end of the month. But ultimately, as a simple formula, it's like revenue minus expenses. We want to make sure this is around 20 to 30%, otherwise it's barely surviving. And what I want you to really understand from here is what we teach inside the academy is 10% is the new break even. If you're only making 5% profit margin after debt and after you're paying yourself properly, you are selling very close to the line. It doesn't take much in these businesses to get like a one-off invoice inbox or a bill. You've got to update your reformer beds, or you've got to buy 5 more ski ergs, or your land tax bill arrives, whatever. It doesn't take much for it to disappear, okay? So 10% is a new break even. How do you fix that? Well, there's 3 ways to fix it, or there's 3 ways to improve it. The first one is you've got to increase profit by optimizing expenses, right? Expenses. We want to make sure that your expenses come within what we would call the rich studio ratios. And one of those ratios is your labor percentage, which we'll talk about next. The second thing is we want to make sure your pricing's on point. If you don't have a profitable acquisition system, a profitable way that a member can come into your business, then you are starting the journey with your new members at a loss. We see this a lot with people running free trials, cheap trials, 7 for 7s, 14 for 14s, those type of things. It's bad financial practice because you are financing, acquiring new members into your business. There's a better way to do that, which is a profitable acquisition system, which is obviously what we teach everyone in our academy, which is why they make more money than most studios in the market, where you get the members to pay for themselves on the way in. In fact, you can even make a profit from that. Okay, story for another time. But yeah, the second thing is the pricing. The other part of your pricing is, when's the last time you've turned your price up? Honestly, everything else is going up. I mean, we're sitting having a coffee, aren't we, right now? We're sitting here having a coffee. This is the back of the napkin. I mean, an ice lime black in the shops right now is $8 here in Sydney. If you end up being there on a public holiday, it's about $13. You may as well buy a meal, which is also increasing in price. So everything's going up. When's the last time you raised your prices? And just before you think, oh my God, my OGs are never going to want that. Okay, start with the new people. And then there's a way that you can increase your prices. If you'd like a video on that, just comment underneath here on YouTube and I'll do another video about how to increase your prices properly so people don't leave you. The third part about is retention and suspensions. We want to make sure the money stays in the building. We want to make sure all your members are worth more to you than the competitors down the road. We want to get your retention rate down to that 4% monthly and your suspension rate down to about 10% monthly. If you're over those two numbers on a monthly basis, you are definitely leaking money out of your business, and that's why you've got an issue with your profit. The second number is cash flow, and this is why revenue does not mean you can pay your bills. Cash flow is how much actual money is moving in and out of your business. It's the difference between being rich on paper versus having money in the bank or in your pocket. You get to the end of the month and you look at your zero, or you look at your payroll, or your bookkeeper sends you a notice and goes, all right, well, you made 30 grand in profit. Well done. And you go, where is it? You're looking under the table, you're looking under the keyboard. Where's the fucking, who's got the 30K? I don't have it. It's because this formula's out. Okay. So here's the formula. It goes cash inflows minus outflows equals cash flow. For instance, if you made 50K this month, but $30,000 is tied up in unpaid invoices, you might not actually have enough money to pay the rent. So why this matters is because a profitable studio can still run out of cash if payments are delayed or expenses hit all at the wrong time. I'll give you an example. There was one year we were crushing it on sales in November. It was in November we were crushing it in sales. So we thought, let's actually turn our prices up, but we'll just do a little tweak to the price engineering of how we collect the first payment. Instead of $4K up front, it was $1,500 up front and then $500 on a weekly basis. Now, good idea. Problem was that also landed in a month that we took our team overseas for breaking some records. And it was also in the same month that we decided to pay out all our Christmas bonuses. So what do you think happened? We had negative cash flow. I mean, we still might have made enough sales on paper, but just the way that the inflows and the outflows happen on that particular month, it killed our cash flow. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that if we've got $50,000 coming in, because that's our revenue, we actually collect 50, right? Or even 45 of it. And even though we've got, $30,000 in expenses, because we collected $45,000 and not the $20,000, and we didn't have all these outstanding amounts, we've actually got, a cash flow of 45 minus 30, which is $15,000 in actual cash in the account that I can take my kids to the zoo with. It's in the account. That's what we want. Okay. So how do you improve cash flow? There's ultimately three ways. The first one is accounts receivables. You've got to make sure that you've got processes with your assistant, or whether you're doing it yourself, is to make sure that you're collecting payments. Nothing's urgent or outstanding. The second thing is, consider some upfronts. In our model, what we teach in our academy, there's a lot of sales that happen throughout the month, and that's all collected is upfront money. The reason why we like upfront money is because it pays for the ad spend, it pays for the sales commissions, it pays for the little newbie bag that they get, it pays for anything that it needs to in order to fund and make a profit on the cost of acquiring new customers. Every single business in the world has a cost to acquire new customers. Even if it was word of mouth, you probably got a referral, 2 weeks for free or something on the back end of that for one of your members. That's a cost, okay? So consider doing upfront payments. The third thing is also just quite simply managing your expenses. I get a lot of peace in knowing that no matter what day of the month it is, we're always in the profit. We're always positive cash flow. So I know there's going to be seasons in your business. I know there's going to be winter. I know there's going to be a Christmas, and I know there's going to be some ups and downs. You've got to forecast for that and make sure that you don't just forecast your top line. In fact, I'll do a video about forecasting. You're not just forecasting your top line revenue, what you expect to make, which is obviously sensitive to the seasons, but you're also forecasting your expenses. One of the mistakes that we made was we just looked at the top line, right? But what we didn't account for was when we were going to hire new staff, that was going to obviously hit the expense line. When we were due to pay out bonuses, when we were doing end of challenge parties, when we were doing Christmas gifts and all that kind of stuff. And if you hire people from different parts of the world and they've been with you for long enough, you might do what's called the 13th month for those of you that know what that is. You got to forecast those expenses. Otherwise, and then you've got to work back to the original number, which was profit. You've got to reverse engineer the profit you want to make plus the expenses equals the sales target. Most people just go, these ones and like, oh, sales target, just doing these ones. Like, well, what feels good? No, it's not. What profit do you want to make? What's the expenses that will happen in that month or that quarter? Add those two things up, boom, that's your sales target. Break that down to I'll do a video on sales targets. If you want a video on sales targets, just comment sales targets underneath this and I'll make sure you get the first one. So that's a big thing. It's just managing your expenses and making sure you're forecasting for your expenses. The bonus tip here in terms of cash flow is to have a bit of an emergency stash. Now, there's a great book called Simple Numbers. And in that book, it talks about building up a bit of an emergency fund or savings in your business of about 6 months. I think that's a bit extreme. There's nothing we can't really fix within a quarter, okay? So I reckon about 3 months. Think of it as like your life savings, your emergency fund, okay? If for whatever reason you walk in one day to the studio and a toilet burst, you know you're just gonna have money to pay for that, okay? Rather than going, fuck man, I've got to sell 2 ski ergs, a reformer bed, and maybe my firstborn, which you probably don't want to do. So this is just a 3-month stash of your non-negotiables expenses, right? So you don't need to put in there like the merch you might buy or the activewear that I know you buy through the business. Good, not bad. So that's really important. Next to profit, there's cash flow. Now, the third thing I want to talk to you about is labor percentage. Now, labor percentage is such an important number to really keep an eye on. And I think this is the one that triggers people the most because you don't have to get emotional about your profit. You don't even get emotional about your cash flow, but sometimes your labor percentage means there's people involved and you might need to have a conversation. Now, these businesses, studios and gyms, they make great money. They are great money-making businesses, but whatever margin you're making can completely disappear if you've got 2 people doing one person's job because you didn't want to have a hard chat, okay? So the number that I want you to get to is 40% or less. Labor is your biggest expense. Next to your rent, labor is your biggest expense. And if it's too high, your studio and your gym, your business is in trouble. So your target is to keep your labor costs under 40%. The formula is total payroll divided by total revenue times 100 equals labor percentage. Spelt differently if you're in a different part of the world. So, example, if your gym makes $50,000 a month and pays $20,000 in staff wages, then your labor percentage is 40%, which is healthy. But if you're at 50% or more, your profit is getting eaten alive. Why this matters? If your labor percentage is too high, you won't have enough margin to reinvest back in your business. You're not paying yourself properly, or you don't have enough money to grow. High payroll equals low profits. You've got a sad face, but all your team have probably got a happy face. We want to get that balance right. So how do we fix this? Let's take care of some basics, okay? So the roster. One of our clients, bless her soul, wanted to do the right thing by her staff, who are kind of her mates, which is a whole nother situation. So she came to us and said, I don't understand why I'm making this money, but I've got no money to take home. And we go, all right, cool, let's pop the bonnet, let's have a look at the spreadsheet. And we're like, boom, damn, what is wrong with this labor percentage? It's like 56%. And she was like, no, I've only got bum. It's like, how much are you paying these guys? Turns out she was paying everyone the Sunday rate, which here in Australia is like an inflated penalty rate. But she was paying that all through the week for every shift because she wanted to be nice. She didn't want to be not nice, right, to her kind of friends. And we're like, dude, like you're not going to really have many friends without this gym either. And at the moment, that's where you're going. You're making enough money, you're making enough sales, you're working your bloody ass off, but you're paying too much of it out. And to be honest, it's unnecessary. So get your roster right, make sure you're paying properly. Now, story for another time. We might do a separate video on this. If you'd like this, comment underneath. But there's ways that I'm a big fan of uncapped earning potential, but doing a base plus variable package for most of my staff. That way, they're getting paid what they're supposed to as per award wages and regulations. But if I want to incentivize people that I like, I put it on the back end of achieving something that is a good thing for the business so that my ratios stay in check. So that's that. The second thing is, unfortunately, you do have to have some tough conversations. So all your team need to have KPIs because productivity is the prequel to profit. Every single person in your business needs to be making you 2 to 3 times. That's how we make sure that this transaction that we're doing together is good for both of us, okay? And that's how we also make sure that your wages align with revenue. You got to have your staff in your studios making sure that as much as possible through the month is doing gross margin production activities, including yourself, right? Now, if you've got staff in your business that don't have KPIs, If you've got a manager that you don't want to talk to and like give some hard feedback because they're not hitting KPIs, and you and I both know this, look, just me and you having a coffee, okay? If you know that and you're not having the chat with them, it's kind of your job to do that. And that's robbing the profit from you. I know that's hard to hear. I know it's uncomfortable. I know you don't want to do that. There's some books to read that might help you along that. Dare to Lead's a great one by Brené Brown, where she talks about clarity, like a clear, direct conversation is in fact the kindest thing you can do. Now, we've got a format on how to have those tough conversations. We've got a way to do that through your one-on-ones. We've also got a way to make sure that when that person came into the business in the first place, it was really clear what was expected of them, okay? If you'd like any of those resources, comment it underneath. You and I just having a chat, and that gives me feedback that that's the kind of stuff that you guys want to see more of, okay? So I will do that for you guys. I'm unfiltered, you know that. But you've got to have that chat. If your labor percentage is above 40%, there's something a little bit wrong, and it's affecting how much money you're taking out of this business, which probably affects how you feel about this business. So these first two things work on the expense side of things, like stuff that is going out of the business. Ultimately, you can get this thing as lean as you can, right? You can't save your way to $1 million studio. So the third thing is you've just got to hammer your marketing and sales. You've got to bump up your revenue. Yeah, because it's a formula, right? Like looking at the expenses is only one side of it. The second part of it is like obviously making sure that you're making your revenue. So I want you to get into a sale a day. A sale a day makes most problems go away, particularly with your healthy financials. So you've got to be getting like 3 or 4 leads every single day. You've got to be making a sale a day to the point where it is weird if you went a day without a sale. It is weird. What happened? Like that was kind of weird. No, it's got to be your culture, an absolute non-negotiable. And that's what we teach in our academy. So tying it all together as we kind of wrap up our coffee together, we've got profit, which is what's left over after your expenses. We've got cash flow. That tells you if you can actually pay your bills at the end of the month without selling a trainer or a ski erg. And then you've got your labor percentage, which tells you if your staffing costs are sustainable. If one of these 3 things are broken, your financial health is at risk. But if they're not, me and you are happy people. Studio owners who track these numbers win. The ones who don't, head in the sand, they're going to work harder, they're going to make less money. If you want me to break down more accounting terms just like this, drop a comment underneath this video on what confuses you the most, and then I'll expand on that. Now, if you want my profitability tracker to make this even easier for you, there'll be a link in the description where you can grab that, and it takes you through it step by step. And give me some feedback on how these videos are going. I just want to break it down with you side by side, me and you. I've worked with over 1,000 studios and I really want to help you out completely for free with these videos. So hit subscribe, turn on notifications, because next week I'm going to be breaking down how to price your gym memberships for maximum profits without scaring clients away. You do not want to miss that one.